Property in WA still booming or flagging? That's our topic for tonight, or that's our title for tonight. Welcome to episode 74 of Property Avenue WA. I'm Tony Viner, commonly known as TV. This is Oscar D'Souza. And if you're wondering, for those that are actually viewing this and not listening to this, if you're wondering why, hang on, the boys are getting a little bit hairy around the facial side of it. It's Movember, and we thought, was Oscar's idea actually. We thought, well, let's do something. Yep.
Oh,
yep. You're the one who went, hey, well, I went, that's a good idea. So we're doing that for Movember. And if those are wondering what Movember is all about, Movember is exactly that. It's about the moustache, but it's more important, it's about men's health. So we will do some posts on our Facebook page and our Instagram account, etc. And we would love you, be it $5, $2, $10 or whatever. We're trying to raise, we're not doing big dollars, but we're trying to raise $500 to see if we can do that for the month of November. So Movember is what it's about, and we would love your support. As for property and as for tonight, we are now, as you're probably aware, we have changed from weekly to fortnightly, and as of this week, it will be every fortnight we'll be doing an episode. Our podcast will be available every second Wednesday. And tonight, it's just what is being going on. There is so much going on with WA property. Interest rates is the chatter, property growth, affordability. There is the banks have now, as of the 1st of November, extended their stress test on loan applications. So we'll have a chat about that. Oscar will do his stats and a review of the rental and the sales market. And we want your questions. If you've got questions associated with property in Western Australia, please send them through to us. You can get it via our live chat line. You can send us a message via our Instagram account, which is Property Avenue WA. You can do it via, what else can you do it by? You can do an email, but our live chat line is probably the way to go. And we would happy to, what we don't know, we'll go and find out. So that's what it's all about. So it's a focus on Western Australia, and there's a lot of people, interestingly, in the last couple of weeks, I reckon there hasn't been a day gone by that we haven't had someone inquire from the East Coast asking us about property matters or wanting to buy over here in WA and wanting some assistance. So it's a very, very interesting time, and hence the discussion. We'll also do Oscar's favourite segment, what's on the notice board. If we've got time, we will also do some questions, some property questions, and we'll also do the if question. So then we'll
beautiful.
Mate, how you been? How's the things?
Really good. That is one jam-packed hour of, over the next hour that you've just mentioned, mate, if we're going to try and fit all of that in. But
we'll see how we go.
Yeah, TV, I'm good, mate. Good as gold. My mo is, as I mentioned to you, it's really starting to pee me off. Just because it's starting to go curl around my lip and go into my mouth, and it's catching my coffee and my food.
Ever heard of a trim?
Hey,
ever heard of a trim?
Yeah, I have. I heard about it about 7 minutes ago when you mentioned that I'm allowed to trim it. I thought the whole idea of what we're doing is that you're not allowed to. You just have to let it grow and grow feral. So as soon as
you can have any style you want, you can create any style you want. And the fact is, as someone asked me the other day about Oscar and his mo, I said, mate, it's taken me 45 years to grow mine, and Oscar's only taken 2 days. So
yes, well, it's definitely due a trim, so I'll definitely do that. But yeah, no, mate, I'm really good. I'm really busy. I obviously operate in the rental space, and that remains busy. It's really, really busy. There's a decent level of inquiry coming in for me in terms of looking after people's rental properties, and that's local inquiry, but also, as you touched on, a bit of Eastern States inquiry. I've been working with a guy in Sydney he's been buying a few properties up actually around the rest of Australia. And I've been working with him for a few weeks now, and he's finally nailed one down here in WA. Yeah. So I'll look after the management of that when the property settles, hopefully by the very end of the year. But yeah, our real estate market over here in WA, we're in the last month now of our spring selling season. So in November, we'll cap that off. And it's been an absolute cracker. In fact, you know what? I actually went back and had a look at, I was on a plane the other day, just for a short trip to Kalgoorlie. And I was on the plane and I listened to some of our podcasts, which I had downloaded to my phone, going back to earlier in the year. And we were talking, I mentioned about the spring selling season. So this is a good 6 or 7 months ago. And I mentioned about the spring selling season and how people were suggesting that winter, it might die off a bit and probably will continue to die off through to the end of the year. And my speculation, and it really was just a speculation, but my speculation and therefore prediction was that we're going to have a real bumper spring selling season. And I think there's plenty of life left in our real estate market. And for once in my life TV, I actually picked the winner. So it's, we've got a very, very strong market here, and I look forward to getting into some stats shortly and drilling down as to exactly what our local market looks like.
Hey, I love it. We've actually got someone from the outside world who's contributed to what's on the notice board. So I can't mention what it is, but I will. It has been noted, and it will be ensured I will have that on what's on the notice board.
It's probably one of those things that you do every other week where you go, today's World Have a Shave Day, or today's World Curtains Day, or something like that. And
I've got a couple of them.
I know you just make them up on the spot, mate. You just make them up on the spot.
No, I don't. But anyway, we'll keep that. The other thing I will tell you with what you're talking about is that with our podcast, can I just ask, because I know you haven't had time, and that's probably the first time you've listened to the podcast. I've listened to a couple of episodes.
No, it's not.
How do you reckon it comes across, listening to yourself with what we've been discussing?
That's a good question. Look, of course I'm going to be biased because I'm listening to you and me talk about real estate and about property. So I try my best to put myself as a third person, as if I was just listening to any other real estate podcast. And mate, I think it comes across fine. I don't want to talk it up. I certainly
no.
I don't want to talk it down either. I think it's a pretty easy listen. I think you and I probably come across quite conversational. It's not all regimented, and it's not only statistics. I think it's quite a good bit of banter, which has all actually got some substance to it, because there are some stats in there. We are both on the ground in our respective businesses, which it's primarily real estate, that we do, just in different areas of the real estate sector. So I actually think it's a pretty easy listen, where those listening will actually also gain a really good idea as to what's going on the ground in WA real estate. That's my own view.
I know it's our show, but I must have, when you listen back, because I always look at it in a critical sense to see what we can do better. But I've certainly had some feedback from people to say it's a good listen, and it's got it's a relaxed environment, but I would like to think that we've got some idea of what we're talking about. So, I think the plan is, as we've discussed, is to try and extend on our guests on a bit more of a regular basis. And so we look forward to, and hence the fortnight. It gives us time to do that because we are damn busy at the moment, but we don't want to stop doing it.
Just on that, because you mentioned it, so in a fortnight's time, we've got a Kalgoorlie real estate representative that will join us on the show. That was hopefully going to be tonight, but it's going to be in a fortnight's time. And this particular girl has been with the same office in Kalgoorlie for I think pretty much 10 years, which for whether you're in Perth or in Geraldton, to stay with the same office for such a long time is it's pretty unusual. But I think it also says a lot about loyalty, but it also says a lot about the experience of the person as well. So can't wait to have this young lady on the show in a fortnight's time, and we'll learn a whole lot about what's going on in the Kalgoorlie real estate market.
And that would be sensational, because it gives us a good perspective, because we've done Geraldton, we've got Jordan Ralph give us a perspective of what's been happening up in Karratha and Port Hedland. We probably need to see if we can do something in the southwest, and obviously we've got your valuable assistance and observations when it comes to the metro area. So that would be sensational. Look forward to that. That'll be good.
Yep.
Good. Hey, okay. I think we should, without further ado, because we've got so much to go try and get through tonight, I think let's just get onto it. Let's just do the OD stats, a review of the rental and the sales market. Mate, would love to know what's been going on over the last fortnight and what your view is.
Well, CB, I will tell you it's very different from every other fortnight and every other week.
Really?
But I'd be lying. No, it's not. Actually.
That's what I'm going to say.
No, CB, I want to be able to report something different, mate. But for anyone that has been listening or watching the last 2 or 3 months shows, it's been, well, I've kind of been reporting the same stuff because our market is just so strong. It's very, very resilient, both in the sales area and then also the rental market as well. And that's just the way that it is. And I can't see any reason why it's going to change. And I can't see any signs in the demand and supply factors that is suggesting that we are actually about to have a change. If anything, and this is only a very slight observation, in the sales market, I have noticed a bit of an increase in the supply. So in terms of those buyers that are looking around and they've got that fear of missing out, there's a massive amount of activity in the sales area, but I have noticed a bit of an increase in supply as at today from where we were at a couple of months ago. So I'll come to that in just a moment. But in terms of the transactions through Perth, just in the last week, not in the last fortnight, but just in the last week, there's been 1,097 sales just in the last week, in the last 7 days. Now, you may recall when we have our normal market, so not really the last couple of years, but, probably 3 or 4 years before that, a normal market is around about 500 to 600 sales, and I say normal or a sustainable market. Whereas, as I said, we've just had 1,097 in the last 7 days, and it's been really, really high. It's been consistently between 800 to 1,000 sales every week for the last 3 or 4 months. And the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've actually tipped over the 1,000 sales per week mark. So that's a big number of sales. In contrast to where we were at 12 months ago, 12 months ago, we had done 853 sales. So we were out of COVID. We were towards the tail end of our spring selling season, and that was 853 sales in the same week last year. That's a 22% increase this year compared to where we were at last year. And that's a really, really big number, a 22% increase in the number of sales compared to where we were at 12 months ago. In terms of the listing, so right now there's 8,863 properties available through WA. And in contrast to this time last year, bearing in mind we had a very busy market, there was 10,221 this time last year. So we're down on stock about 13% right now compared to where we were at this time last year. However, I mentioned that, I have seen a little bit of an increase in the number of sales. That 8,863 only about a month ago got down to about 8,100 to 8,200. So it dropped, it was less by about 7 or 8%. About 3 or 4 weeks ago compared to where it is at now. So that's probably the only sign that I can see that there may be a little bit of a shift. But you talk to any real estate agents and you look at the number of transactions that are happening week in, week out. There's lots and lots of buyers around. There's properties that are selling at the first home open, and there's also properties that are sold off market or before they even make it to the first home open. So still a very, very busy sales market. The rental market in the last 7 days, 628 properties that have leased. This time 12 months ago, that was 750 properties. And the only reason why we've seen a drop there, as I've mentioned before, is not because the rental market has slowed down. It's just that there's not enough rental properties around to lease. And hence we actually see a lower number today than where we were at 12 months ago. listings, in terms of our rental listings, is as low as I've ever seen it. So we're talking about Perth here, 2,229 listings through the whole of Perth. Now, that's a real low number. When we were at 1% vacancy, which is going back the second half of last year, we had around about 2,900 to 3,000 properties. So that's 12 months ago. And as at right now, we've got 2,229. This time last year, there was 2,814. So today, we've got 21% less rental stock than this time last year. And this time last year, we were moving into that rental crisis area. The government had a freeze on rental increases and also the moratorium on evictions, which you would recall. But as at today, we've got 21% less stock. Quickly finishing up, Geraldton last week, I think it was TV, or maybe, no, sorry, the week before.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there was 32 or 33 properties, I think, in the whole of Geraldton. That number's back up to 45. So it's good to see that supply is back up to 45, but we're still talking with really small numbers. Like we're talking 45 versus 32. So, and 45 is just a massively low number for Geraldton. That number needs to be 150 or 180, and it currently sits at 45. But a positive sign there, even if it's short-lived, for people that are looking to rent in Geraldton. And Kalgoorlie, because as I said, we're going to touch on Kalgoorlie in a couple of weeks' time. As at today in Kalgoorlie, there's a whole 42 properties available in the whole of the Kalgoorlie-Boulder region. So their population's a bit smaller than Geraldton, or sizably smaller, but it's still north of 20,000 people. And for the whole population over there, they've got 42 properties available for rent. So again, it's rental crisis all over the state, regional or metro area. And that is my statement today.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'll interrupt you before you finish. But when you talk about Kalgoorlie Boulder, that has also got high employment, the mining industry, etc. over there. Although they may not have the population that, say, Geraldton has, that's still not a lot of properties when it comes to people looking like getting employed and then saying, I need somewhere to live. Well, and those properties won't be sitting there waiting for people to rent out. They'll have applications coming out of their ears, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's right.
And the same would apply to Geraldton.
Yeah, similar to Geraldton, similar to Headland and Karratha or Carnarvon, Busselton, wherever. Like all these properties are leasing at the first home open, and sometimes they won't even be advertised. Sometimes people will be finishing up their lease and they've got a couple of weeks to go, and new tenants will be walked through the property and they'll sign a lease on that property for as soon as the old tenants move out. So it's a very, very difficult time for tenants. It's a landlord's market. There's no question about that. And similarly, in the sales market, it's a seller's market at the moment. Sellers are doing well, and buyers have got a short amount of options, and prices are going up. Which and in terms of prices going up, we'll come to that shortly, mate, because I know that in your notes there was a question about are prices going down. But in my view, no. Prices are definitely going up, and so therefore that means buyers are paying more today than what they did 12 months ago.
I suppose I better, just before we go any further, just refer to, because don't forget we have our podcast coming out tomorrow, so we better quickly do our disclaimer, our general advice disclaimer. The information on this podcast is to be regarded as general advice. Your personal objectives, needs, and financial circumstances were not taken into account when preparing this content. We always advise and recommend you seek personal, professional, and financial advice tailored to your specific individual needs before making financial, property, and investment decisions. And I will give you a classic example today where we sat down with the client, we put stuff together, and it was important that we got correct accounting advice before we completed a contract to ensure that we got the right structure in place. And the client was a little bit uncertain, so we addressed that via the accountant, and that makes it so important. so important when it comes to the implications that can have with a buyer. When it comes to stamp duty, if you don't get that right, you could suddenly end up, through no fault of your own other than not doing your homework and getting proper advice, suddenly you can be paying double duty. So that is really important when it comes to making sure, whatever it may be, e.g. getting, maybe you're selling privately or you're buying privately, which has been that bit of that happening as well, then it's really important that you seek someone's assistance, professional assistance, to ensure that you cater for all the various special conditions that need to be attended to. You make sure you got your contract properly done. And I did one today, private contract, where we covered a few things. And I was so distracted with what I was doing. The client said to me, "What about a termite report?" And I went, "Oh my God, I hadn't put that in there. I hadn't included that annexure." But I'm sure once I read it and gone through it, I would have realised it. But it was just interesting. The client picked up on it and went, "I can't believe I didn't think of that." So it is really important to cover those things. Yep.
Just on that point, mate, the other thing being as well, I mean, you do want to have someone independent and experienced or professional in the real estate field that can to think up things that maybe you wouldn't do. But the other thing being is that most of the time when we're talking about these real estate transactions, whether you're buying or even whether you're selling, it's normally a pretty exciting period, because when you're selling in this current market, you're trying to see, well, how much are you going to get? And that's a lot more than what I thought, and we've got a couple of offers going at the one time, and so it's pretty exciting on that end. And certainly from the buyer's end, whether it's an investment property or even an owner occupied, there's certainly that excitement. You really want it, and to have someone that is independent, that is not getting caught up in any of that emotion or that feeling, that can actually give you some advice on, that's great. You guys ride the emotional roller coaster and be all excited, but let's just make sure that this goes the way that you actually want it to go, and make sure our paperwork is in order and executed correctly. So there's on one hand, it's really good to have someone with that real estate experience, but just having someone who's independent and not a party to the transaction is a good idea as well.
Yeah, well, I had one yesterday, in fact, with a lady. She'd not done it before. She identified myself through Google, and originally from the East Coast, come over here and decided to buy up in WA. And she wasn't, obviously the process is different to what it is over East, and there was a few things that we discussed yesterday morning, because she was looking at putting an offer together. And so we identified a few things to address that. And she sent me a lovely email later on in the morning to sort of say, that's not what I was expecting when she made the phone call to me. And it just put her mind at ease with regard to that. So, and I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but I'm just identifying the scenarios that you're talking about. And I'm sure there's other people like yourself with your client from Sydney who you've been helping and giving direction. There was a little friend there. I just waving to a little friend in the background.
Yeah, that was my eldest.
I know. So, it is important, because you can get caught up in everything that's going on. And once the contract goes to the settlement agent or the conveyancer, and then you go, oh, but we wanted this, we wanted that. There's a contract, and that contract's been signed, it's been organised, and away we go. Hey, getting back to our main topic, which is still property in WA is still booming or flagging. So there's been a few things that come up, and obviously the things that I've identified, that I read a piece from CoreLogic.
You can say article. You can say article. I know that you like.
I changed it. I just thought I'd just make it a little bit different. But CoreLogic, I read. I think it was an email that I received, and they were suggesting that their stats, January, February, March, the increase in WA property were around about the 2.3, 2.7, 2.5. Then it dropped away a bit, 1.5% April, May. And then it's been down around about the 0.5% up until October. So it's interesting with what we're saying, because I'm not seeing that from contracts that I've been addressing. So when they get these figures, for example, and what they're talking about is the values and therefore the growth in property, I'm not seeing that. Are you seeing that? What are you observing? Because that just
No,
seems.
I'm not.
So how
I
are these figures derived?
Yeah, look, I really do scratch my head sometimes when I see uh, Core Logic. I mean, they're one of the main ones that do put out these statistics, and often they're relied upon as well. But I do scratch my head just because I'm dealing in the rental market, but I still am in touch with what's going on in the sales world, and friends of mine that are real estate agents that are selling properties literally daily, and prices most definitely are going up. There's that much competition for so few properties, and there's no doubt, there's no question that prices are going up. All I could suggest, TV, is sometimes they do look at the median sale price as
Yeah.
opposed to the mean, but sometimes that data their sample size can actually be a bit distorted. So if for some reason there's lots of properties selling down in the lower price bracket, and by lower price bracket I mean 250 to 500,000. If there's lots of properties that are selling down there, but then the properties in the upper bracket, and I'm talking 1.5 to 3 million, if there's only very, very few properties that are selling up there, the median itself is going to be the middle number of the sample size. And so if there's 80% of everything that is sold, I'm using this just as an example, is between 250 to 500,000, and only the balance 20% is anything north of 500,000, that means that our median price is going to be quite low. And that's where sometimes this data can actually be distorted, because that therefore might suggest that our growth rate is not as high as what's going on in the eastern states. It might suggest that prices might even be going backwards. So I think that any set of data always needs to be drilled down a little bit as to, okay, but where are we actually, what's our sample size, and what is our sample that we're looking at in order to make these representations? Because I don't think you'd talk to many people here in WA, whether it's buyers or sellers, and definitely not real estate agents, in terms of whether prices have progressively gone up over the course of this year. And that data, or rather those stats that you just suggested, or rather those stats that you just quoted, suggest that the prices, particularly in the last 3 months, have not gone up.
Yeah, and they're saying that some of those factors that are impacting on our market, and in fact, I'll read a section where they referred to the virtually flat reading was down from a peak of 2.7% through February, making Perth the market with the fastest slowdown in growth rates. And they have assessed this slowdown being a few different factors, including extended state border closures, which is something I was going to raise later on, a renewed affordability constraints for first home buyers, and a recent uptick in new listings volumes.
Yeah.
So that's their assessment of Perth market and why there's a slowdown. Yet I've had scenarios in the last fortnight where I've had clients that have actually bought the property for above asking price.
Yeah.
So, I'm not observing, from my experience and my on the ground association with property, I'm not seeing values where suddenly the person's asking for 500,000 and only getting 460 or 470.
Exactly. That's right. Hey, yeah,
That's not happening.
here's what. Yeah, I totally agree. Here's one case in point, TV, and I'm going to ask you to take a guess at what you think this site sold for. Marine Parade in Cottesloe?
Yes.
Yeah, and Marine Parade continues down towards Swanbourne, basically, and basically it terminates. Marine Parade basically terminates at Swanbourne, and you've got the Swanbourne Surf Life Saving Club and everything down there.
Yep.
So there was a sale.
Isn't that where the nudie beach is?
Yes, that's right. I knew you'd know where it is.
You knew
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm there all the time.
Yeah. By yourself. And that's
Go for a run. Yeah.
Anyway, there was a site that sold down there, and this is just the land. There was a house on it, but you knock it down. So it basically was land value. And I think this happened just last week because I saw it on the news. and a very prominent Cottesloe real estate agent by the name of Justin Davies. His business is Space Real Estate in Cottesloe there. So he's just sold this property. Now, it's a 800 to 900 square metre site. It's level, but it's effectively Marine Parade and has an unrestricted, uninterrupted view straight out to the beach, to Rotto, slightly facing in a northwesterly direct, like the absolute pick of the bunch in terms of a site. But then someone has to come along and build the house. Have a guess at what that site sold for. In a hotly contested market, have a guess at what you reckon someone might have paid for the 800 to 900 square metres of land.
The fact that it's in Cottesloe, the fact that it's on Marine Parade, I'm going to say probably in the vicinity of 1.8 to 2.2 mil.
No, it's definitely not that. It sold, is going to blow you away, 13.3 million.
No.
Last week, 13.3.
Really?
Now, I would have thought that site would have, just knowing what I know about the best of the best real estate, the best of the best coastal real estate, and it is Cottesloe that we're talking about. So I could have envisaged that it would have been somewhere between maybe 7 to 8 million, maybe as much as 10, but I mean, that's
really?
That's just, yeah, because this is the best of the best.
Yeah, I know, but 13 million?
13.3 just for the land.
What I'm saying is, then what are you going to build on it? My God.
You're going to spend another 5 million building a house.
Unbelievable. Well, don't forget, I suppose when you compare that, what about the place over in Melbourne? Did you hear about the little beach shacks, or not shacks, the little
I think I saw
675,000.
How much?
I think it was 675,000.
I caught the beginning of that story.
Something like that. It was in the 600,000 bracket. You know what we're talking, don't you? We're talking about basically a toilet, an outdoor toilet.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And it's got fancy colours painted on the door.
And what did the buyer, like, what can you do with that?
Nothing. Get changed when you go to the beach, open it up and keep out of the sun.
Oh, my God.
Not a lot. Probably take a barbecue with you. I don't know what the rules are, but that's a lot of money, isn't it?
So now, I mean, we're talking about some crazy prices. So, but getting back to the real estate market, and just having a look at, I don't know. There'll be some new data that comes out shortly, and again, it just depends on what is the sample and who's picked out the sample. But from every single thing that I'm seeing on the ground, and with the demand that we've seen, and with every other person in the know that I talk to about real estate here in WA, we've seen big price growth over the course of this year, and any suggestion that prices have gone backwards, I think, is really misleading information.
Yeah, well, as I said, I found it quite intriguing, and hence our topic tonight, and hence the opportunity. And I thought, well, the fact that we were planning to have a guest tonight, it didn't really bother me because there was so much to address, and I thought that was worthwhile. The other thing that I really wanted to talk about is the interest rates. Now, there's been so much chatter, and it's been going on for a while, but I found it really interesting that and it's as though everyone's waiting for the first Tuesday of every month. The Melbourne Cup was the case this year. And of course, everyone's sort of, it's like they're trying to ensure they get it right and saying, well, interest rates, it's going to change. But I don't think even the banks know what's going on, because it was really interesting to see. And again, I've made a point of reading lots of different articles and different newspaper segments and newsletters that you get, and I get the Commonwealth Bank do a podcast about a whole variety of things, share market, etc. But they're suggesting that they see interest rates perhaps increasing November, like as late as November next year is when they start to see interest rates increase.
Really,
but not that high. It might be 0.5%. And yet ANZ, they are suggesting it'll be the first half of 2023. So the way the media is talking and the way all the talk has been talking, it's like we're expecting interest rates to change tomorrow. And yet there was another section that I read where they're sort of saying, and I'll read that, but it's just an interesting observation with regard to what is going on, that there's lots of talk about interest rates and things of that nature, but it's not happening, because although inflation is of some concern, there is some concern about property at the moment, because the amount of debt associated with property, an increase in interest rates could have a massive impact. And as another article I read, this is by a particular economist, suggesting that if we get too caught up, we could end up with interest rates going up, having a massive impact on affordability, because the amount of lending that's involved with home lending, and we're back into a recession. And guess what happens then? Interest rates drop again. So it's a bit of a management thing at the moment.
Yeah. So much earlier in the year, when we realised that we've just got a booming WA property market, and we've just banged out of COVID like absolutely no one would have predicted in WA. But then also in the eastern states, the Sydney and Melbourne market at the moment is just out of control, absolutely out of control. And I speculated or suggested for a lot of many times earlier this year that interest rates have to come up earlier than what the Reserve Bank was saying. And the Reserve Bank, even to this day, is suggesting not before 2024. And I don't know what, they've just been so adamant that it will not happen before 2024. I think, though, that in the most recent Melbourne Cup Day meeting, that there was some insinuation that maybe, and only maybe, it might be the very end of 2023, where we'll see an official interest rate rise. But other than that, they were just standing firm at 2024. And I've been saying, but look, I think our property markets are just too out of control, and I think inflation will become a concern over next year, and therefore I think interest rates are a good mechanism to try and put some control over that. And bearing in mind, so this is me talking well earlier this year, and over the course of this year, we've seen the banks start to increase their interest rates, their 4 and 5 year, and maybe their 3 year fixed interest rates. They've started to lock them or increase them, and then basically increase them, because they're factoring in that they can see that interest rates are going to go up a bit sooner than what the Reserve Bank keeps talking about. But what we have seen, which I think you're going to get to shortly, is that shift in the APRA, I think it's APRA, the lending guidelines. And so they're trying to, as opposed to shifting interest rates, they're now looking at your eligibility criteria for a loan and ultimately your serviceability. And it becomes harder now for you, or rather, they have a higher serviceability rate that you have to satisfy than what they... Sorry, I'm not explaining that very well. I know what I'm trying to say, but you can probably explain it better than me, because we're probably segueing into that now anyway.
We are. So what we're talking about there is, but I will make mention. So what we're talking about is APRA they've, as of the 1st of November, APRA have now increased what they call the stress test. So the purpose of that is that if you're applying for a loan, your loan application is assessed on an interest rate of 3% higher than the current rate at the moment. So at the moment, it's something like, I think the base rate is 0.01% or whatever the case may be. When you apply for a loan, your assessment will be 3% above whatever the bank rate is, to ensure your affordability. That being said, and the purpose of that is to slow the pace of home loan lending. That is very much focused around a lot of screaming and yelling going on in the East Coast about affordability. Can't afford to buy a home, not allowing first home buyers. Now, remembering we're talking, and as we've discussed in past episodes, we're talking about a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom unit selling for $1 million. We're not talking about a property 4x2 here in WA that you can buy for 500 or 600, or in fact, in some cases, I've got a property of clients that I went and saw the other day who have hummed and hawed about what they're going to do. We're talking about a 4x2. They'll probably sell it in the vicinity of the mid to low 400s, right? And they're even entertaining providing the furniture because they're moving back to Queensland, etc. So what I'm saying is that property, if that was in Sydney, would probably be $2 million plus. So that has been influencing the fact that the Reserve Bank have gone, well, we're not going to change interest rates, but we're suggesting there needs to be some attention with the loan applications. But this section that I read in the Commonwealth Bank newsletter was that APRA has recently taken a step to slow the pace of home loan lending by raising the serviceability interest rate buffer to 3%. So it's gone from 2.5 to 3%, which, if you remember rightly, Jordan Ralph and also Dean Stonehouse, our resident finance brokers that we have regular guests on our show, they made mention of that before. However, as far as the bank's concerned, they doubt this will have a significant impact on the pace of home lending, as the overwhelming majority of home loan approvals are not at the borrower's maximum capacity. So I found that a very interesting observation that's coming from a bank, or at least the bank's economist or whoever it is that writes these articles. They're saying that they're not suggesting that will have too big an impact on the marketplace, because the majority of home loan approvals are not even close to being the borrower's maximum capacity. So it's not really going to change. Obviously, it's going to impact on some people, but and of course the other thing too that it affects all is wages, and that's not increasing at the moment.
Yeah.
So it all gets back to the ability to repay.
Just going back to your other point, though, I mean, it does beg the question: why would APRA change that serviceability guideline with the intention of trying to slow the out of control real estate market when it? Well, so I guess it's speculation, because we have to wait and see what happens over the next 6 months. But if it's suggested that, well, it's not really going to, we don't think it's actually going to have any impact whatsoever. Why even use that as a mechanism to, because meanwhile, if it's not going to have any impact whatsoever, well, then what we are going to get is another 6 months of an out of control real estate market, and prices and housing just becomes more unaffordable, and where you were going to just before, wages is not keeping up with that sort of growth whatsoever.
No, not at the moment, and particularly with the lockdowns. I mean, do you think in time, when we talk about WA property, and remember we're focusing on WA here, but as far as Western Australia is concerned, do you think that our property market, with the fact now that they're saying our borders are not going to be open until at least January, or a 90% vaccination, is that going to turn around and say, as much as that's going, oh, beauty, that's good, that's fantastic, is it going to have the reverse effect of going, I'm over this, and including people from the East Coast are saying, I'm happy to go to buy in WA, but if we can't get there, that's not going to happen?
I don't think so, TV. I don't think it'll actually affect people's buying decisions at all. When the borders do open, if anything, I think it will heat the market up even more.
I agree. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, but so far as not, our borders opening up a bit later than everyone else's, so far as real estate is concerned, I don't think there's going to be any downside there, because like always, real estate's always a long-term strategy. It's always a long-term investment. And the difference between us opening up our borders and the rest of the country, we're talking about 2 to 3 months. Maybe it's going to be 4 to 5 months. But in real estate terms, that's not really a big drama. So I don't think there's going to be anything adverse there so far as buyer interest is concerned.
I had a situation the other day where a client rang me, which reminds, when we finish tonight, I've got to do a couple of emails for clients regarding some stuff that I...
You never stop, mate.
No, I know, but you're going to tell me you're any different?
I do stop.
Yeah, well, so do I. Yeah. When I go to bed, I will digress a little bit. You talk about you never stop. You never stop. But the fact being is, I got a section that came up on my computer the other day, and it warned me that I'd spent in the last 30 days, over 10 days, I'd worked on my computer past midnight. And then it advised me that I needed to rest up, and I need to manage myself and my well-being better. And I went, whoa, Big Brother's watching me. It was quite interesting, really
Oh my
interesting.
God! So how did that little app or whatever get on your computer? Let me guess.
I got no
Your
idea.
wife?
No,
I
I got no
do.
idea. No,
I think
I don't know.
your wife might have had something to do with that, mate.
Hang on, I've just got our resident bank manager from Bendigo Bank, Community Bank of Geraldton, one JB, a mate of yours and mine.
JB.
Yeah, he's just come back to us and said more changes from APRA around clients' living expenses, more scrutiny and increase in range and minimum levels, which might quite drastically decrease borrowing capacity. Which leads me into another little section, because I received a Commonwealth Bank. I read this, and I may mention them because I've got to be careful what I'm reading here. But they've created what they call household spending intentions, and so they have created this index, which is identifying with the intention of identifying where spending is happening, and what it's doing and what it's not doing. And they made mention. Where did I read this? They made mention that there was a Google, they got some information. Oh, yes, home loan applications were a little higher in October, but this positive momentum was partly offset by a decline in Google searches for property inspections and appraisals. Now, that's Australia-wide, okay? But that was an assessment they got with this home buying intentions index. The home loan application was a little higher in October, but the positive momentum was partly offset by a decline in Google searches for property inspections and appraisals. Interesting.
Good.
Don't forget, that's not WA.
So that's Google searches, though.
Yes.
Okay, but is that because these days everyone's got apps on their phone, so they're not needing to use Google for that?
I don't know. I'm assuming they're not just relying on that, but I'll follow this up further and I'll get some information and see what we can do. But
hey,
the banks are quite protective. Yes,
I'll reverse the role, because if we've got our resident community bank manager paying some sort of attention to our show, I do know that obviously the banks or the mortgage brokers have to pay attention to your personal spending and what it is that you're spending your money on in order to work out what level of disposable income you've got to contribute towards a mortgage, etc. Yes. But my question is, do they look at it to the level that they actually unpack or drill down as to exactly what it is that you're spending your money on, and therefore how risky are you as a borrower? For example, if they see that you're spending $150 a week on alcohol, is that a bad thing? Or if they see that you're spending $150 a week on cigarettes, like, do they actually look at things to that level and think, oh, gee, you're not going to be around for very long, or you can't keep yourself fit? Where's your gym membership? Do they look at things like, do they assess some level of risk based on what you're spending your money on, or is it really just the level of money on personal expenditure?
Interesting you asked that question, and a very good question. I can't answer that completely. It's certainly not something that I've experienced in my time in finance, but I haven't been practicing finance for a long time.
For 40 years.
But he has, a bit less than that. But also, he's come back to us, JB's come back to us and said he also read an article. See, I'm not the only one that reads articles, about a survey released recently by UBS. Who's UBS?
University Building Society.
I don't know. Just over 2 people in 5 weren't truthful on loan applications. So are liar loans back on the go? Is his question?
Is his question?
That was his statement.
It's his statement, yes.
Just over 2 people in 5 weren't truthful on loan applications. This is the survey that was conducted. I think I read something along that line as well. So liar loans, as he makes it, are they back on the go? That's a good question. I don't know whether a loan assessment is based on your lifestyle. I think it's more based on.
So that's what I'm asking. Yeah. So maybe Jay. Yeah. Right. Okay. But maybe JB might.
JB might. He likes to have making a comment. So we'll just see if he comes back to us with that. He does. He is proactive. I don't know what he did last week when we decided to change from weekly to fortnightly. He probably just watched reruns, I reckon.
I bet he did.
Probably had some time. Hey, listen, I think we've covered a few things here, but I think the one thing that I will ask you, which was part of our headline, affordability. So when we look at the situation at the moment and where we're going at the moment, and with regard to what's going on, I still believe, even though we're saying that from our observation, there's been growth, but I still think when it comes to property in WA, sure, you've got these extreme situations when it comes to $13 million for a vacant block of land in Cottesloe, but that's not the everyday man.
No.
And someone that does that, they identify that as being affordable. But in general, when it comes to buying property, there are opportunities still here in WA, and it's certainly an affordable market. And I'll give you an example that I had earlier in the week or last week, where I had a client. You just walk off and run away.
Well, because the dog is scratching the door to get back in, and
I see.
And then the dog's gonna wreck the door.
Yeah, I get it. Anyway, I had a situation where we talk about affordability. Hello, pup. Have a look at him. My bloke's outside, sort of crying, saying, "What are you doing, Dad?" So where I was, these people couldn't get a rental, and then this guy put this little cheapie, and I mean cheapie. I mean, we're talking, below $10,000 in a small country town. Put a sign up and said, "I'll see how we go. It needs a bit of work. It's just, probably needs a lot of work, to be honest." Bingo. This is an opportunity for a young couple. The place that they're renting had been sold. They had nowhere to live. He's working. So they found this place in this small community where he's been working anyway. There was no rentals available, and they bought this place. So there's opportunities in WA that you're probably good. I mean, that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I still think I'm not getting too many people saying I can't afford to buy a house at the moment, because I think there's opportunities here in WA. We're still not over the top, I don't think, when it comes to prices.
I think we're extremely good value, and that basically is across the board in WA. From what I understand, the northwest places like Karratha and Headland, not so much Newman, but the coastal stuff, which is in high demand because of the mining activity that we've got going on. They're certainly getting some big price growth up there, just because the demand again is has just gone through the roof, and so those prices are starting to get a little bit silly, a little bit scary. Nowhere near what they did in the height of the boom, when you're paying $1.5 million for a really, really old 40-year-old rundown asbestos 3x1 on a 700 square meter block, because you can get $2,500 a week rent. So we're not at those sorts of levels, but predominantly through the state, in the Perth metropolitan area, but particularly regional WA, I think, our prices are fantastic. And what I said TV when I moved originally from Perth to Geraldton, and even now that I've moved back to Perth, the Geraldton real estate market, what you get for your dollar over there, I really do think is the best value anywhere up and down the coast. I think it's great value real estate for such a gorgeous coastline.
When these clients spoke to me last week and said, "TV, when you're in town, can you come and have a chat to us?" Lovely couple that I've known him for quite a while, clients of mine. And when I sat there in this house, I looked at it, and when they said we're going to sell it for different reasons, and probably similar to myself because of their age and everything else, and saying, "You know what, we don't need this because they've got property elsewhere." Then when I looked at that place, honestly, it's a first home buyer's dream. In fact, it'd be an investor's dream. And they're even considering leaving all the furniture other than a few personal items they want to take with them. But they've said, well, we're going into state to take all that furniture with us. It's going to cost us an arm and a leg. So, here's a place that you'll get for less than $500,000. And as I said, you'll get for low 400s or thereabouts. Mate, it's a dream. if I was younger and I was looking, I'd go and I'd buy it for investment purposes. It's
Yeah,
everything you want. You walk in there tomorrow and you've got a property for 400,000+. I mean, seriously,
yeah,
it's quite remarkable. So that sort of confirms what you're saying. I've seen
yeah,
that firsthand, and I'm sure you're no different. So
yeah. No,
so I think
really,
when it
really.
comes to, our headline and our topics tonight, property in WA is it booming or it's flagging? No, I personally think that we're still rocking along. We're not certainly not flagging. And when it comes to interest rates, when it comes to property growth, when it comes to affordability, sure, all those things are relative and are always important when it comes to property. But at the moment, and I think for a while yet, all those things, they'll have some effect on you. But then that's where you go and get your professional help and professional advice. But when it comes to buying in WA, still some fantastic opportunities, in my opinion.
Yep, totally agree, mate. I've just looked at the top left corner of my screen and looked at the time and realised that
I haven't got time for headlines, but I do.
The notice board.
Oh no! Don't you worry. Don't you worry about that. You don't think I'm going to forget that. So before, I think we'll just go straight to what's on the notice board. Oh, I got the wrong one. Oh my God. Here we go.
Yeah, old mate.
Oh my God. What's on the notice board? So if you've got something that you would like promoted, we'll put it on our Facebook page. We'll put it on our Instagram account, whatever the case may be. So it can be quirky. It can be someone's birthday. It can be anything. And we do have our resident guest, our resident banker, manager of the
Bendigo. Did you say banker?
Banker, community bank.
Oh, I thought you said something else.
He has advised that on this weekend at the Geraldton Golf Club, the 13th of November it is, at the Geraldton Club, is a par event which is sponsored by the Community Bank in Geraldton. So if you want to have a game of golf, in fact, I was out there on Saturday, I had a game of golf. The greens have been, which is quite often the case this time of the year, where the greens have been sanded and whatever. But they were running okay. They were good. They were, same for everybody. The course itself and the fairways, unbelievable. What they've done there is just exceptional. So if you want to have a game of golf in Geraldton Golf Club on this weekend, sponsored by one other than Community Bank Geraldton, it's a par event. Everyone gets a bit upset about par event, but I think it's okay. It's a game of golf, for heaven's sake.
Yeah. And it's fantastic that the Geraldton Community Bank Bendigo gets behind and sponsors such an awesome event. I'm pretty sure, though, my recollection of Jody Bevan is not really that much of a fan of the golf club. In fact, he may have even said to me at one point in time he'd rather get one of those shafts and stick it in his eye than play around a golf. So
he's not. He doesn't get excited about it. Hang on, he's come back to you and said, OD, we are not all judgy, but if expenditure is not declared, then it will lead to closer scrutiny. A good lender will look at income, age, etc., and get a feel for what the client should have in savings or equity. A lot of borrowers don't understand the audit process the banks go through around responsible lending obligations and how critical the correct and evidenced living expense declaration is. So there you go. That's a very thorough.
It is
very thorough rundown of what, from a very experienced and very highly respected banker. That's a really good rundown.
It's a good explanation.
Anyway,
it doesn't sound like Jody Bevan would have read that. I reckon it might have been his wife who said,
"Okay,
this is what."
Anyway, what's on the notice board? My buddy, in fact, he was my barber since I was a 17-year-old, 18-year-old uni person.
When you had hair?
Yeah, no, I still got hair. It's just a different colour. It's his birthday tomorrow, so I'll touch base with Frank and wish him well. But he's a fabulous guy. And then, did you know today is fall of the Berlin Wall Day?
Yeah, I did.
Now tell me, what year? Do you know what year it was at midnight on this day? Do Do you know what year it was? 1989.
Really?
Yep. Fall of the Berlin Wall. So it's the fall of the Berlin Wall day. And tomorrow is Forget Me Not Day. Now, you might laugh at that, right? You might laugh at that.
Of course I'm going to laugh at that.
No, Forget Me Not Day encourages people to try and reconnect with those you may not have been in touch with. And the origins of that and identifying people you've been trying to get in contact with. And the origins are connected with soldiers who died for their country. So there you go.
That is good.
So I'm full of information. And of course,
you're full of something.
On Thursday, don't forget Thursday, the 11th is Remembrance Day.
Yes.
So there you go. So I'm getting very serious and deep and meaningful now.
You are,
And then I'll let you update to this because we won't have a show next week. But 19th, next Friday, down at Kwinana Golf Club, is the Viner Hegarty Shield, which is in honour of my dear dad and Tommy Hegarty, a member of Kwinana Golf Club, where Kwinana Golf Club and Geraldton Golf Club vie for the Viner Hegarty Shield. So we do that next Friday at the Kwinana Golf Club. And then on Saturday and Sunday, there's some 30 of us from Geraldton Golf Club. And normally there's 2 or 3 of the guys from Spalding come as well. And we play the Kwinana Cup, which is on Saturday, Sunday, 20th and 21st. So a bit of golf happening, a bit of good stuff happening. And that's what's on the notice board. So there you go. Were you happy with that?
Excellent.
Very
good. Very good session this week on that.
We better wind up, but I've got an if question. And I think, I think we should always finish with an if question. Wait for it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. We'll have to come up with some good ditty, a little tune for Christmas. We're getting to Christmas soon, so we'll have to have a little. Anyway, the if question. We'll make it short and sweet, but where am I? The if question.
I already know my answer.
No, you don't. You don't even know what the question is.
I know, but I know my answer.
If you came across a magic bottle and the genie popped out, I made this one up myself in a hurry. If you came across a magic bottle and the genie popped out and it gave you a couple of wishes, what would they be?
A couple.
Yeah, you got 2 wishes.
My first wish is that I would have another bottle exactly like it with a couple of wishes. That's my first wish.
Yeah.
And my second wish is that I don't know. I could create.
No, anybody think this is a right or a wrong question the way you go about this? All you do is just give it off the cuff answer, for heaven's sake.
No, my second wish would be if I could have dinner with Jodie Bevan. Just sit down, please. Have a quiet meal with Jodie Bevan, and just catch up on life. I would love that.
I'll see if I can grant you that wish. There you go. I'll see what I can organise.
You're not the genie.
Yeah, I'm a genie. I'm a genius.
What would you? No, that's what you're definitely not. What would you do with your 2 wishes?
I would. My wish would be a business class flight for my princess and I to visit our son in London, Luke, in London.
Yeah.
That is something that I would really like. That's how it came up with the thought. And my other wish would be for retirement, and that we were given a free 2-month holiday to anywhere in the world for the rest of our retirement years.
See, that's a bit unfair, mate, because not only did you think up that question, but then you've got 2 awesome answers prepared, whereas I've just been put on the spot and had to come up with BS, which is having another genie bottle.
Excuse me.
Going to lunch, going to dinner with Jodie Bevan. How boring would that be?
Excuse me. No, it wouldn't be. And by the way, I did this in a rush about 30 seconds before I pressed the button to go broadcast, start, go live, or whatever it does.
And that's why you're a genius.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, listen, been a pleasure again. I've really enjoyed it, considering the fact that we had to rejig a little bit, which sometimes happens when it comes to guests. But, mate, been a pleasure. I think the idea of doing 2 weeks gives us a little bit of time to be a little bit more organised, although I didn't feel very organised. For those that are being a part of our show, look, please pass it on. We've got to try. We're definitely keen to. He's going to do. Golf sticks ruin a nice walk was JB's suggestion, and he's going to hold you to the dinner situation. Absolutely. But for those that do, we've got our podcast will come out on Wednesday, being tomorrow. If you want to have a listen rather than having to watch us, we'd like to think that we provide some good information. And if you've got questions during the week, whatever the case may be, you're welcome to send them to us. Send them by text, via mobile. You can do them on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, or our Instagram account, or you can contact either one of us direct. And we just look forward to doing it. We just enjoy doing it. And we look forward to doing this again in 2 weeks' time, a fortnight, with our guests from Kalgoorlie and whatever else we can tell you about. Take care. Thanks a million for being a part. OD, have a great week, and I'll catch up with you in the next couple of days. And everybody else, take care, have fun, and happy buying, happy selling. Look out for our Movember posts on our Facebook page, because we want to raise that $500. See this stuff here? Father Christmas we're going to be. See you later.
See you, buddy.